It doesn't happen all at once. You don't wake up one day and think, I've made a mistake. No, aging is quieter than that. The mistakes are small, almost invisible at first. You stop saying yes. You put off that trip. You tell yourself you're just tired. But really, you're fading out of your own life. And by the time you notice, you've built a quiet prison made of habits, fears, and waiting. But here's the truth. Old age isn't a retreat. It's a reckoning. And in this video, we'll reveal the 7 most dangerous mistakes people make when they get older and how you can avoid them. Because it's not too late. Not if you're still breathing. 1. Neglecting physical health. Skipping walks and eating poorly may seem small, but accumulate into serious decline. Physical inactivity leads to weaker muscles, poor balance, and increased fall risk. Common errors include ignoring nutrition, skipping meals, and avoiding regular medical checkups. Example: Henry lost strength after stopping daily walks and found it hard to rebuild. We often imagine aging as a gradual slowing down, a gentle fade into the background of life. But the truth is more complicated and more urgent. Old age isn't just about time passing. It's about the invisible decisions we make every day that either preserve our independence or quietly take it away. You don't wake up one day with a walker or in a nursing home. It happens bit by bit, and often the damage begins long before anyone notices. That's why we're starting with the most overlooked threat of all: neglecting your physical health. Not in the dramatic way, no heart attacks or broken hips, but in the quiet erosion of strength, balance, and vitality. It begins when daily walks are skipped because of weather or fatigue. Meals become simpler, then less frequent. Doctor visits feel more like judgment than help, so they're postponed. Soon, weakness settles in like a shadow. You don't reach as high, walk as far, or feel as steady. You sleep more, but feel worse. You're not in pain. You're just not quite yourself anymore. And it feels like something you can't get back. But the truth is, you can. It begins with one walk, one fresh meal, one checkup you've been avoiding. The greatest danger of neglecting your health isn't the risk of falling. It's the risk of believing it's already too late to change. Real life example. Henry, 78, was once an avid hiker. After his wife passed, he stopped walking. He told himself it was grief, but really it was fatigue, apathy, and a subtle fear that he wouldn't enjoy it alone. Within a year, he couldn't walk a block without rest. When he finally restarted with the walking group, half a block at first, he said, "The hardest part wasn't moving, it was believing I could again." The body remembers if you give it a reason to. 2. Isolating from friends and family. Withdrawing socially can lead to loneliness, depression, and cognitive decline. Isolation has health impacts equal to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Staying socially active improves mood, memory, and energy. Example: Dorothy regained her joy and mental sharpness by reconnecting through calls and clubs. There's a silent epidemic far more dangerous than illness in old age. It's isolation. Not just being alone, but feeling alone, even in a crowd. It begins subtly. Fewer calls from friends, family visiting less, routines shifting without notice. You tell yourself you're fine, that you enjoy the quiet. But beneath that silence grows something heavier: loneliness. And loneliness doesn't just break hearts, it breaks bodies. Studies now compare prolonged isolation to smoking 15 cigarettes a day in terms of health impact. That's how deeply it cuts. You see, we are wired to connect. Conversation keeps the mind sharp, touch keeps the body grounded, and laughter, shared laughter, is one of the last medicines that doesn't come in a bottle. But here's the twist. In old age, we often wait for others to come to us, for the phone to ring, for the invitation to arrive. And when it doesn't, we pull back further, assuming we're forgotten. The truth? Reconnection starts from within. It starts with reaching out before you're asked, with joining a book club, a community center, a volunteer group, not because you're desperate for attention, but because you understand that connection is strength, not weakness. Look at Dorothy, 82. After moving to a new city to be near her daughter, she spent 6 months inside, watching TV, telling herself she was adjusting. But her memory started slipping. Her sleep was restless. Her days blurred. Then one day, she walked into a knitting circle, not because she loved knitting, but because she missed conversation. 3 months later, she said, "I didn't know how much of myself I had lost until someone said my name." If you feel invisible, don't shrink. Step forward. 3. Refusing to adapt to change. Many seniors resist learning new tech, health practices, or modern safety tools. This refusal can lead to frustration, dependence, and feeling left out. Example, Albert resisted smartphones, missing out on connection, until he embraced them and found new ease in daily life. Adapting to change fosters independence and engagement. One of the most damaging mistakes we make in old age is clinging to outdated routines and resisting change, even when change is exactly what's needed to grow, protect, or liberate us. It's not stubbornness, not really. It's fear. Fear that letting go of how things used to be means losing the last of who we were. So we grip tightly to the old recliner even though it strains our back. We insist on driving the same car even though our reflexes aren't the same. We refuse to use that smartphone because we never needed it before. But here's the truth. Adaptability is not just a young person's strength. It's a survival skill at any age. And the most vibrant older adults are the ones who embrace learning and change, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it challenges their identity. Because growth doesn't end when your hair grays. It sharpens, it deepens, it widens into wisdom if you let it. Consider Thomas, 76, who refused to use a walker. "It makes me look old," he said. But after 2 falls, he finally tried one. 2 weeks later, he was walking farther than he had in a year. "I thought I was preserving my pride," he said, "but I was sacrificing my life." Or Eleanor, 69, who didn't want to move out of her childhood home, even though it became too hard to maintain. She cried the day she downsized. A year later, she hosted 3 new neighbors for coffee in a condo filled with sunlight. "I didn't know I could feel this free," she said. The habits and environments that once served us well may quietly betray us if we're not brave enough to update them. Change isn't the enemy of dignity. It's often the source. 4. Mismanaging finances. Overspending, failing to plan for emergencies, or underestimating future costs causes stress. Seniors are targets for scams due to outdated knowledge and misplaced trust. Example, Richard spent freely in early retirement, only to struggle later with medical bills and needed family support. Regular budgeting, scam awareness, and conservative planning are essential. Another mistake that quietly steals joy in old age is ignoring financial clarity, either by avoiding it entirely or by trusting too blindly. Money becomes an emotional subject as we age. Some feel shame over not having enough. Others fear outliving their savings. And many, especially widows or widowers, suddenly find themselves navigating finances for the first time alone. This emotional weight leads to two common extremes: paralyzing avoidance or impulsive decisions. We don't open statements. We don't ask questions. We sign documents because someone said it was fine. Or worse, we confuse generosity with obligation and give away what we can't afford to lose, whether to family, acquaintances, or scams wrapped in charm. But here's the truth: money doesn't buy happiness, but it can buy security, peace, and options. And that only happens when we engage with it. Set a monthly budget, however simple. Know where your income is coming from. Know who has access to your accounts. Review your will. Talk to your children or your lawyer before someone else's urgency becomes your burden. Real life story. Linda, 71, lost her husband of 45 years. He'd always managed their accounts. When she finally looked, she found unpaid taxes, expired insurance, and a son who'd borrowed $12,000 with nothing in writing. It broke her, not because of the money, but because she didn't know. Today, she works with a financial counselor, and her new motto: I'm not afraid to ask anymore. Or take Carl, 80, who downsized into a smaller place, not out of desperation, but planning. I'd rather make the choice while I still can, he said. That's the key: making empowered decisions, not reactive ones. Money in old age isn't about hoarding, it's about understanding. 5. Ignoring mental growth and purpose retiring doesn't mean growth ends. Losing purpose leads to faster decline. Lifelong learning prevents cognitive loss and boosts emotional well-being. Example: Linda felt lifeless post-retirement, but found renewed purpose through an art class and new friendships. Continued engagement in passions, learning, or volunteering brings fulfillment. One of the biggest and most heartbreaking mistakes people make in old age is letting their identity fade into their age, as if being over 60, 70, or 80 means you must also stop being fully you. Somewhere along the way, society starts labeling you retired, elderly, grandparent, or senior. And those labels, while not always ill-intentioned, slowly chip away at your individuality. But you are not your retirement status. You are not just someone's parent or spouse. You're a person with tastes, ideas, desires, a laugh that is still uniquely yours. And losing sight of that leads to a quiet kind of emotional erosion. It's subtle. You stop playing the piano because no one hears it. You stop dressing up because what's the point? You stop dreaming new dreams because you think the dreaming window has closed. But here's the truth: it hasn't. There is no expiration date on becoming more of yourself, on writing your memoir, on starting a garden, on learning Spanish, on falling in love again, or painting sunsets that only you can see. Consider Maya, 79, a widow who'd spent 20 years helping raise her grandkids. Then one day she said, I don't remember the last thing I did just for me. So she enrolled in a watercolor class, not because she wanted to become an artist, but because she wanted to remember what being curious felt like. 2 years later, her paintings hang in a local library. Or Frank, 73, who started a blog. Even if 5 people read it, he said, that's 5 people who know what I think about jazz music and justice. Holding on to who you are, even evolving that identity, isn't indulgent, it's necessary. 6. A quietly devastating mistake many make in old age is underestimating how much their presence still matters. It's not always said aloud, but you can feel it. People talk around you, not with you. Invitations grow fewer. Decisions are made without your voice. The world seems to speed up as if it no longer has time for your pace. And so, some people withdraw, not bitterly, but quietly. They stop showing up. They let others assume they don't care, when in fact, they care deeply, but have grown unsure of their welcome. What gets lost in that silence is the incredible value of experience, patience, and perspective. Qualities only time can give. When elders retreat, families lose stories that would have guided them. Communities lose the calming force that says, we've been through worse and we survived. And the individual loses that vital feeling of mattering. But here's what's powerful. The moment you realize that you still have influence, still have a role, you can step back into the light. You don't have to be loud to be heard. You don't have to be needed to be present. You just have to show up fully. Consider Evelyn, 84, who started reading at her local library's children's hour. "The first time I thought no one would care," she said, "but they keep asking when I'm coming back." Or Joseph, 77, who volunteered to teach chess at the local community center. "I'm not fast anymore," he laughed, "but I teach patience." People began to linger, not for the moves, but for the man. The truth is, your presence, your consistency can be the anchor in someone else's storm. 7. The final and perhaps most heartbreaking mistake people make in old age is waiting for someone else to give them permission to live. Permission to be happy again after grief. Permission to travel alone. Permission to say no. Permission to say yes. It's as though the older we get, the more we wait for a doctor to approve, for our children to validate, for friends to join us, for the right time to appear. But the truth is, time isn't coming to get you. No one will knock on your door and say, "It's your turn to live now." That moment only comes when you step forward. And often, it doesn't look like something grand. It's a cup of coffee poured just for yourself at sunrise. It's buying that train ticket without asking anyone. It's saying, "I'm not done yet," even if you only whisper it. Waiting robs you of moments that were already yours. You don't need a committee to approve your joy. You don't need to be someone's priority to prioritize yourself. You can do it afraid. You can do it unsure. But you must do it, because the days ahead, few or many, still belong to you. Consider Henry, 81, who spent 3 years after his wife's passing saying, "Maybe next season." Then one day, he booked a cabin alone, just for a week, just to breathe. He came back with stories of birds, snow, and one excellent pot of stew. "That was the first time I felt like myself again," he said. Or Lily, 76, who always dreamed of learning to swim. She started in the shallow end. There's something powerful about doing something you were once too scared to try, even if it's just for you. You don't need permission. You only need a beginning.